Hi, I'm JB Bickerstaff, head coach of your Cleveland Cavaliers. Voting is one of our most important civic duties. It allows us as citizens to have a say in what happens in our communities. And for students like you, voting can impact the things that affect you most, like federal financial aid, federal student loans, and more. Make sure your voice is heard. Register to vote in November's upcoming election. We draw up game plans on the court. Make sure to make a voting game plan for you and your friends. The deadline to register to vote is October 5th, so don't wait. Your vote, your future. Visit www.voe.cuyahogacounty.gov for more information.
All right. So I think we can get started, and as other people join, they can jump in. But I just want to start and say thank you to everyone for attending today. My name is Laurel Wilder. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications at College Now Greater Cleveland. And we are thrilled today to be joined by Ahmaad Crump with the Cleveland Cavaliers and Erich Stubbs at the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections, who are going to talk to us a little bit more about the importance of voting, how to get registered to vote, and it's perfect. Today's National Voter Registration Day, so we thank you for spending the evening with us today learning, as I said, a little bit more about the importance of voting, how to get registered, and some of the other ins and outs of voting. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ahmaad and Erich to get started. Just some housekeeping, we will be recording this to send to other students who weren't able to attend after the fact. And right now, all participants are muted. At the end of this, we will have a chance to ask questions. So when it comes time for questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. You can always drop your questions in the chat. But otherwise, we will turn it right over to our special guests.
Hey, thank you very much. What's going on, everybody? As Laura said, my name is Ahmaad, announcer for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I'm just thankful to be here today to give you guys an opportunity to listen real closely of how important voting is. Voting and registering to vote, it can be very scary. It can be an intimidating process, but exercising your right to vote is probably one of the most important things that you're going to do as an adult. It has a huge effect on your life. Plus, you can take steps to register to vote, and you can submit a ballot as well. You can do that from the comfort of your own home. You can, if you're watching TV, you can just sit on your couch and you can register yourself. You can submit a ballot, should I say. We'll share more information about that, how to register and how to apply by the vote by mail ballot shortly. But first, I just want to take a couple minutes just to share with you some quick facts to me about why voting is so important. When you vote, you can make decisions about your community that affects you. Voting is one of the ways that you can have a say what happens in your community, be it your city, your state, or your country. When you vote, you elect people that represent you, believe in your policies, believe in whatever you believe in. It represents you in the government. These are people whose their job is to listen to you and your community and to bring back ideas to the decision makers who will use that information to make laws and policies that pretty much will affect you. Now, again, these people who are elected to represent you and what your community believes is important. If you're in college, like all of you are, thinking about plans after high school, you're probably thinking about financial aid. You're probably thinking about federal grants. You're probably thinking about student loans, student loan debt, things that I'm dealing with right now, and I've been out of college forever. Many of those things are affected by elected officials. They can make policy decisions about student loan debt, decide how much money is awarded through things like the Pell Grant, and even more. Make no mistake, every vote matters. Many people think that there are so many people that are voting that their vote is just going to go by the wayside. It doesn't even matter. Not the case at all. It's many close races that are determined by one single vote or a handful of smaller votes. And if everyone decided that their vote didn't matter, that there's a good chance, there's a great chance that elections wouldn't turn out the way many voters wanted. Every vote is important because it is your voice. It can make all the difference in electing a specific candidate into our office or instituting a specific policy. Voting is a hard-fought right. We have people who died, who laid their life on the line for us, all of us, to have a chance to vote. Voting isn't something that just happens. It's something that generations of Americans have fought and still fighting for right now. Many countries in the world today don't have systems of government that have elections, and it is important for Americans to not take that for granted, the opportunity to have their say in their leaders, in their representation. It's our responsibility to exercise that right. No doubt about it, no questions asked. You know, people talk about change. You want to change, and you want this law to happen, and you want this, and you want that law to happen. If you don't get out there and get to the polls and vote, you know, you're just wasting your voice, you know, because your vote, it can make a difference. The bottom line is voting is a duty that we all have to make a difference and make our voices heard. Now, I got Erich from the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections that's going to talk to you for a couple minutes. Well, I'm going to ask him a couple questions just in case, if you aren't registered, he'll explain it to you how easy it is to get registered. So, Erich, let me ask you, how do you register to vote right now? And is it easy that you can do it at the house?
Yes, sir, it is. It's just as simple as you said. It's the convenience of your home, the convenience and safety of your home. You can do it online as long as you actually have a valid driver's license. It can be done online, but then you still have to print it off. But if you do not have a driver's license or state ID, then you are forced to do it the old-fashioned way, through paper. Now, you can pick those applications, voter registration cards up at your BMVs, your libraries, and all of your high schools, or you can pick them up at the Board of Elections. So there's a lot of convenient places to pick them up in the community. But as you mentioned, the importance of doing it when you're eligible to register, which is at 17. So most of you may have done it in your high school government classes prior, but some of you who have not taken advantage of that opportunity, you do have the opportunity to do it from the comfort of your home. Like, go ahead and, like I said, printing it out, dropping it off at a BMV or library, so you don't have to mail it in. So, I mean, there is a convenience around that process.
The election is right around the corner on November the 3rd. Is there a deadline to register to vote?
Deadline for registration is November 5th to make you eligible for the presidential election. It's basically 2 weeks, two weeks from today. I mean, it's right around, it's definitely knocking at the door. So it's do it sooner than later. So you're not forced to, run down there on that Monday before 9 o'clock at night and try to drop it into the box. So take advantage of the time that we're giving you now to sort of push you along. But yes, the deadline is November 3rd.
Even if you are registered, is there anything that people should do to, make sure that people are voting or whatnot? Or just what can they actually do to make sure that they are registered?
The best thing to do is check your status. You can go to www.443vote. It'll check your status to verify that you are registered and verify that you're registered at the right location. There have been occasions where you've moved and you just haven't updated. As a student, you may have registered as a senior in high school and you're a sophomore in college and now you've moved. Now, one thing to be careful about is if you at college, there's a tendency for folks to, your friends are out there trying to get people to register to vote, and you say, well, I'm going to do my friend a favor. What happens is you're from Cuyahoga County, but you move to Columbus, which is Franklin County.
Right.
So you re-register. At that point in time, your voter registration now converts from Cuyahoga to Franklin County. So now when you come home, you think that, well, you know, I can still vote in Cleveland. Well, no, that's not the case. You're actually registered in Franklin County at your either your college dorm or wherever you're staying on campus. So make sure where you're registered, and just make sure that you check your voter registration status.
Okay, so you're registered, and there are so many different ways that you can vote in Ohio. You can vote by mail, you can vote early, you can vote in person. What do each of these things mean as far as voting, early, in person, or voting by mail?
The first option is on October 6th, after the voter deadline, let me clarify, it was October 5th, which is a Monday. October 6th is when they begin the early voting process. Early voting process is when you vote in person at the Board of Elections. So you have basically a 30-day window to actually come into the Board of Elections and vote in person as if you would on Election Day. The other option is absentee voting. Absentee is referred to as vote by mail. Vote by mail would be, you would order an absentee application or fill one out in person that you would got from a BMB or a library, or print it off online, and you would order your ballot to be sent to your house. So at that point in time, you are voting in the comfort of your home, and the convenience. And what happens there, or what the advantage to that process is, the fact is you have an opportunity to review candidates, to review issues, and do your homework. So the best voter is an educated voter. Right. So the vote by mail process gives you lots of time to do that. You know, as it's not homework, but it's actually research. And as you mentioned prior, you know, an educated voter, now you're voting on things that may affect your life for the next 10 years. These are folks who are going to be judges, who are going to be your elected officials for 6 years. They're going to be your Congress folks, and they're going to be your senators. So do your homework, do your research, because they affect your everyday lives. And then the third option would be waiting till Election Day. November 3rd, you can vote in person at your election, the place you're assigned to vote for Election Day. That goes back to the first point of checking your voting status. At that point in time, it'll tell you where you vote on Election Day.
You know, you might have touched on this already, but just to reiterate, you know, when I'm out walking and I'm talking to people about, you know, they need to go out and vote, and they say they're going to do a vote by mail. What steps do you have to take to actually get a mail ballot, and how do you actually return that ballot?
The vote by mail process, in order to make it successful, is you can go online and it'll print an application for you. Now in Ohio, the Secretary of State has actually sent all registered voters a vote by mail application. So if you've gotten that in the mail, take advantage of that and return it to the Board of Elections in person, or you can put it in the mailbox. But the key thing is to fill in all the fields of the application. There is a tendency to forget things like your birthday, sometimes even the signatures. Those small items can delay the process. So going through the process of voting by mail is very convenient. So take your time and do it, but do it right. So I would encourage folks to utilize that process, especially in the time we're living in. It's there's some, in this pandemic, there's some people feel more comfortable than others, engaging in voting in person, but voting by mail is the safe way to go.
In my years on this earth, this is definitely one of the most important elections, that I've ever been a part of, as far as going to vote. And I'm registered, and anybody else who is registered, how else can they get involved for this election season?
We're currently still looking for folks to work the polls. If you go to www.443vote, I guess it applies to Cuyahoga County. Now, in your individual cities, whether or not it's Columbus, Cincinnati, or even outside of the state, look on the county webpage. See if your county, your local county boards of elections still need people to work. I know we still need people in Cuyahoga County. So get involved at that level. It's you know, as you mentioned, there's many folks who've taken the opportunity risk their lives. And there's history behind that. You're standing on this opportunity because somebody else has made a sacrifice to give you that right, whether or not it's people of color or whether or not females. They weren't always afforded this opportunity. So take advantage of the fact that it's here for you. So I would implore you to get engaged at working for individual boards of elections, or actually working with a candidate. Working with a candidate who has your best interest or your values in mind, one way or the other, and getting involved civically.
Hey, Eric, thank you so much for all that information. All the students out there who are watching, I know we dropped a whole lot of information on you. Is there any questions that you may have for Eric about the process of voting or how to register?
So we had a few questions come through the chat. One of them that we have is for students who do go to college in a county outside of where they grew up, do you recommend or think students should change their registration if they go to school in a different county but come home for the summer?
Now, this is a personal recommendation. I would say no. And let me clarify the no, the no why. Because the place where you grew up, those candidates and that community. Because actually, when you're voting on school levies, you're voting on ordinances, and these are places where you do know. Chances are likely once you get to a college town. Let me use Athens, Ohio, as an example. 9 times out of 10, you don't know those candidates, and you don't know the local issues. So and you're voting on, and when you do that, you're voting on things that impact people's lives, not for a year, maybe 2 years. But when you're voting on a school levy, sometimes that levy leverages itself out over 30 years. So you're impacting other folks' lives. So do it. Voting is a privilege, and it's a right, but yet and still, we want to make sure we do it smartly. And I think voting where you grew up, maintaining that relationship maybe where you do know helps in that regard. And 9 times out of 10, you know what's on the ballot from top to bottom.
Yeah, those are great points. Another question we had come through is that people often cite youth as a source of low voter turnout. But sometimes we also see that youth may be a common target for voter suppression tactics. How can young people educate themselves on how voter suppression can impact them? And are there any concrete steps that they could take to overcome that?
Engagement. I guess it goes back to my other comment about getting involved at whether or not working for the polls. In Ohio, there's a specific student poll worker program, and that starts in high school. So to continue that throughout, even if you're in college and you come home, a lot of times you have the opportunity to stay engaged. And I still strongly believe voter suppression in any form or fashion only happens to the point where you allow it to happen. Because there's so many opportunities or venues out there that give you the advantage: voting by mail, voting in person, voting early. Between the three, I personally don't feel that there's an opportunity to suppress your vote. If you utilize one of those three, then I think your rights are protected. I think the lack of engagement sometimes, the lack of information sometimes negate that situation.
Right. Okay. All right. Hope everybody got all this information. They took heed to it. As we wrap up, I just want to remind you that as easy as this process is, voting is a very important part of being a responsible citizen. Your vote, even when you're young, it will affect your future and the community that you live in. Like Eric said, do your research. Discover which candidates support the policies that you believe in that are important to you. And cast your vote for those that will help you have a better future. the way you want it. It's your future. It's your vote. Hey, thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate you. Everybody on here, you are responsible for telling 50 other people to get out there and vote. Vote. We need everyone out there to get out there, exercise that right. Your voice is definitely heard. Get out there, get to those polls early. You know, I know they say it goes to 7:30. Don't even chance it. If you can get out there at 6:30, fine. 6:30 a.m. Fine. Get out there nice and early. And just tell everybody, use their vote, and rock the vote.
Great. Thank you all so much. Thank you again, Ahmaad and Erich, for joining us tonight.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you all at the polls.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.